Welcome back to this week's Tez Talk Show with your host, Montez Swartz. So, our teleprompter is broken, so I will be reading off my phone today. So, I hope everybody enjoyed last week's episode, which was technically filmed 2 weeks ago, which we posted both at once. So, you probably just watched it a few seconds ago, so it's kind of weird, but you can tell the difference because my hair is out in this one. But basically, I promised you guys changes, and here they are. We have a new segment, new co-host, and new material. So let's get straight to it. Instead of doing a basic monologue telling you guys what's been going on in the news lately, I've been thinking, why not make it a discussion with students and having a new co-host involved. Welcome to Dan's Corner.
Hi, I'm Daniel Zapsik. I'm from Long Branch. I've lived in Monmouth County my whole life. I'm excited to talk to Tez, unscripted, about all the happenings in Monmouth County.
Yeah. We usually, for the first episode anyway, we're going to just have me and Daniel here, but we're planning on inviting other students to be involved in this segment to just have, instead of always having these grand guests coming in, we want to just have regular students coming in and sharing their opinions on the happenings of what's going on in our county.
Absolutely.
And New Jersey at whole. So yeah, me and Daniel actually found the same story very interesting that's been going on about a man in Toms River. You want to talk about it?
A certain person was involved in a big gathering January 6th of, when was that, 2021? 2022?
Yeah, 2021.
So that was almost 3 years ago now, and he just got arrested for the crimes that he committed on January 6th. So it's very interesting.
Which is crazy of this man did it 3 years ago and they finally just found him.
You want to tell him how he got caught?
So the way they caught this man by reviewing, so they've been reviewing the recording of it. And so the way they caught him, because he's a small business owner, so of course, he's grounded in conservative ideology, which led him to January 6th. So when doing illegal activities, people usually wear ski masks or, something to hide your identity. He wore his store's clothing, his brand's clothing, when he went out to do crime. And that's how they caught him, which, is wow, that's crazy. But at the same time, thinking about it, it took them 3 years to find him. So was it that bad of an idea? It took them 3 years.
You think he got some good promo off of it?
I mean, honestly, the way this market works, once people hear about his business, I'm thinking it's going to boom, honestly. Think about all the attention he's about to get from his small business.
It'd be really good if he was like a home defense. So he's make sure that this never happens to you.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
But 3 years, there's the statute of limitations, I guess, hasn't run out yet. His charges, I know you have them.
I can pull them out in a few. But also, I just think it's interesting that it's just somebody so close in our community was a part of it, which talks about more of the event instead of it viewed as a 9/11 of these outside forces kind of involving themselves. It's basically was our neighbors that did that. Our neighbors literally invaded our capital.
Because we're only a state away from D.C.
Yeah. So he drove there. Yeah. He drove there to be involved with that, which is just insanity.
And it's crazy. It was just, at first, it was literally just I don't know what they were calling it, a peaceful protest, something like that.
I'm just pulling up his charges, not on my phone.
That was right after Trump lost the election. It was I don't know if if Biden had even been coronated yet. But yeah, people were not happy about that, and they all gathered in front of it.
It was a few weeks prior to it, I remember. Maybe let's talk about where we were January 6th.
Where was I January 6th?
Where were you January 6th?
Well, January 6th, I don't even know where I was. I was probably just at my house. It was during the quarantine, right?
Yeah, it was during, so for my school, we were allowed to go back. So I remember I was in school partially that day, and then I went to therapy afterwards. And my therapist at the time was like obviously like a conservative, and so I got to see the in moment reaction of denial of the situation. I'm like, oh, they're raiding the Capitol. He's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, oh, look at this photo. And he's like, no, they're not. They're not raiding the Capitol. Which was just like, and like certain people don't even believe it was that big of an event. People still deny it, which is so interesting.
Well, you go on, like whatever, you go on Fox News, you see like peaceful protest, and then there were some bad actors who happened to go into the Capitol. CNN saying they organized this. This is all Donald Trump's doing. So both sides obviously have completely different views on the same event. And it's crazy how people got arrested for this. People are facing, punishment for their actions on this day.
Yeah, and like think about how quickly and like I think it's interesting when like when an outside force attacks us, like during World War II, the minute that Japan attacked us, we instantly got into World War II. But it's like, how do we combat our own citizens? Which I think is an interesting conversation, and we'll leave it off there of like, be aware of like who your neighbors are, who anybody is in our society anymore, because anybody could have, not even saying could have been at January 6th, but any of us can be involved in the next one.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was Dan's Corner, and so I'm excited to see our next guest. Okay. And for our only guest this episode, a deputy CEO, a firefighter, a photographer, while also being a husband and father of two, and most importantly, a ballroom dancer. Just kidding. But everyone, here's the incredible Bhak Tanta-Nanta.
Hello, Montez.
Welcome on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to the show.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's important to highlight people in the Monmouth County community that people don't even really know, but you have such like this huge resume and experience that I feel like it was important for us to share with the community today. So let's get it started. How were you raised, and how did you get to the place that you are today?
So my dad was an area manager for the airlines, for an Asian airline, and he specialized in negotiating new routes for the airline industry, specifically SAS and Thai Airways. And so what they would do is they would send him into developing countries, and he would go and negotiate routes, how many times a plane can land in an airport, what kinds of goods and services they can transact for each plane. And then, and because of his success in this, I traveled around the world and was able to live in many different countries. I was actually born in Nepal when Nepal was just developing. Oh. Then I grew up in Taiwan, and then spent the majority of my childhood in Saudi Arabia before coming here at the age of 14.
Okay. What is like an important memory for you before you came to America?
You know, it comes in glimpses, and the important thing, if you were to ask me, like I think back to the fondest memories of my childhood,
yeah,
and that was living in Saudi Arabia. And I went to an international school, and we had so many different kids from all over the world. And there were so many weird things about growing up there too that we all took for granted. Like, why did we have to live in militarized compounds? I never thought about that. Why did my school have to be attached to the U.S. consulate, and why did all the cars have to weave through these giant concrete barriers and get bomb scanned before going in and dropping me off? Why did every map that we had in our textbooks have Israel marked out by a Sharpie? You know, it was all these things that was part of life, but we never understood it. And only before coming here did I start realizing that there's a lot that isn't spoken about in the world, and that it's important that you just kind of like pursue that knowledge for yourself a little more.
Yeah. So wait, what was the main language that you spoke in Saudi Arabia?
English.
Oh, okay.
English,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was a United States military base. Yeah. So why the transfer to like America?
So at the time, the Saudi Arabian government had a rule that said children of foreign nationals couldn't get an education over the 9th grade. So all expats had to send their kids away, and the options were you go somewhere in Europe, you go to Australia, or you come here to the United States. Both of my older brothers were already going to school in Pennsylvania, but that school in Pennsylvania, their main like freshman dorm was a Civil War hospital.
Oh.
And I tell you, there's a lot of like ghosts and stuff. I firmly believe in that. So I didn't want to go there. So my parents said, then you need to do what you need to do, but you're going to school in the United States. So I picked another school up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I know that was really good private school.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's a good school.
Yeah.
Good school.
And you stayed in that area because you chose to go to Boston U as well?
I did. And so, you know, culturally, I had learned English from a textbook, right? So my English was very, very rote and straightforward. And I remember culturally, well, first of all, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, right? So coming to the United States and just seeing how free everyone behaved, how freely everyone dressed, greeting. I used to greet people, hello, how are you, right? And what surprised me was in America, everyone was like, sup? And it took me 3.5, almost 4 months. It was like the winter term. So I came in the fall. It was a winter term when I built up enough courage. And I still remember this day. I was walking to breakfast, and it was just me in the morning, and there was another student walking the other way on the path. And I set a goal for myself. I said, this is the morning that I'm going to say, sup. And I did that. And I was so proud of myself because that actually opened up a bunch of floodgates for me. You know, I had a lot of reservations on what I could do as an international student and who I was, what my identity was. And that was a journey towards understanding what I could and couldn't do. So it's pretty cool.
Becoming more a part of like your community in a way.
Yeah.
And being more Americanized, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that was very important for like your development and everything. And I know
Yep.
you met your wife during that time, correct? When you went to Boston University.
Yes. So, so I lived off campus first year, right? So it was really hard to make friends. So I decided I was going to do an extracurricular activity. And I went to the gym. I was going to play squash. I went to the gym and they said, squash is already booked for this season. So I'm standing there, I'm reading these rosters of what is still available to do at the school. And while I'm reading it, I hear rock and roll music, like old school 50s rock and roll music coming from the doors behind me. So I turn around, all these other kids that are standing around staring at the rosters walk with me to the door, and we open the door, and it's 3 basketball courts all opened up. On the far side is a row of probably 100 girls, and on our side, 100 guys, all standing facing each other on opposite sides of the court. And you'll love this part. So diagonally across the whole space from me is this really cute girl. And she steps out of line, and she goes, and I'm like, yeah, boy, right? So I walk clear across 3 basketball courts. And as I'm about to introduce myself, this dude walks around me and gives her a hug. So she was only waving to this dude and not me. So I was like, oh my gosh. So like 200 kids just watched me
Embarrass you.
really fail, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm committed. So I introduced myself,
Anyway, as you should.
and I stayed in the class.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a ballroom dancing class. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm uncomfortable doing it. You know, I grew up in Saudi Arabia where you don't kind of do stuff like that. So very uncomfortable out of my
So you were
comfort
always like
zone.
an outside box thinker when it comes to like breaking cultural norms.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I was just
okay.
like just the guy that just didn't know what was out there in the world,
Okay.
right? So I really liked this girl, and I wanted to like date her, but I had no understanding of how to do this. Like I didn't even know who she was or whatnot. And then one break, there was this very energetic young Indian man who loved ballroom dancing. And he wrote to me during a winter break, and he said, Bach, why don't you join the ballroom club? And I was like, nah, it's not the right thing for me, you know? And he said, well, you know, Melissa joined, and she wants to compete. So I said, I'm joining the ballroom club, and I'm going to compete. So I went to the ballroom club, and I found the best dancer there was, who was my current wife. And I said, you need to teach me how to dance so I can compete with Melissa. And so she taught me. And it turns out I really enjoy ballroom dancing and became intercontinental collegiate champ in Latin style dancing. I taught at MIT, Harvard, Tufts, BU. Really had a great time doing that for many, many years. And ultimately, my dance partner and I separated from dating and from dancing, but we're still very good friends. We talk every week. But I found my true love in my wife, who helped me with all that.
That's a great story. That was a great story. Yeah, that was very, like, it shows, like, the importance of, like, just being involved in extracurriculars in a way of, like, some people I know go to school and that's all they want to do. Like, they just go. But I think they're missing out on this entire culture and this entire lifestyle if that's all that you want to do when it comes to education of, like, oh, I just want to go there and learn. But that's not what you pay all that money for. You're paying there for these free ballroom dances and, like, these other events that you can go to and meet these people and expand your life.
Oh, absolutely. College, I'm 100% sure, isn't really about the education. It's about learning, like learning how to learn and educate yourself. But beyond that, what has gotten me where I am is knowing that I know how to go into a situation, learn about what it is, and understand it. And adapting,
Yes.
right? But beyond that, it's learning how to deal with people, how to talk with people, you know, how to network. That's really important. And, you know, a lot of times I'm an introvert. I'm 100% an introvert person. I'm always like daily, I'm with my dog. That's it. You know, and then when my family comes home, then we spend time together.
Yeah.
But I absolutely do not like talking to people. But it's a skill set that we need because we are individuals that live in a society, right? So if we don't push ourselves beyond our walls, like, we miss out on all these opportunities, you know? So it's very important to understand that college isn't about just going to classes. It's all the peripheral stuff that's really as important
And
as
you
the
don't have
process
to go
of
to
learning.
everything, but I feel like you have to at least indulge yourself in something so that you're like, I feel like I had a point where it was just like, oh, go to class and go home and then go to work. Insanity, just insanity. Like it's literally, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. If you decide to live your life like that, you have to find these projects, and even though like these projects in theory like mean nothing to anyone, it's important to you, and it makes life better. Like makes it worth living. Makes life. It's about not the destination, but the trip.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's very similar to dating. And when I say this, what I mean by that is like dating, when you date someone, right, you have an end goal. It's trying to find a significant other. But the path to get to that significant other and knowing who it is that you want to spend the rest of your life with or whatnot, you have to go through a whole bunch of experiences and learn what you like and what you don't like, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, right? It's the same thing with college. Like, I had an idea that I wanted to be a filmmaker when I went to college, and that's what my degree was in. But thanks to one of my professors, she was a documentary filmmaker for PBS up in Boston. She told me, she was very, very straightforward. She pulled me aside one day and she said, "Bach, you have great ideas. You're not a documentary filmmaker, but it's a very difficult business. You need to expand, you know, your understanding of how this entertainment industry works, and also find a backup plan." I was 100% set on being an independent filmmaker. I was going to make like artsy, like films and
Black and white.
Yep, 16 millimeter, you know, super expensive films. That's what I wanted to do. And because of what she said, I was willing to try one class in marketing. And wouldn't you know it, when I graduated, she was absolutely correct. It was near impossible to find a job at that time. That was, you know, back in the heyday of Hollywood. Of my entire graduating class, of the kids that I was still in contact with, only one went on to work for Disney. And he worked for Disney for 10 years before leaving, and now he sells insurance. Because Disney was such a huge organization, it was very difficult for him to climb the corporate ladder there, right? So I really appreciate that she pushed me outside of what I was singularly focused on becoming. And that is what I grew my career on, actually in marketing, that one class that I took. And I was fortunate enough that I entered into marketing in the heyday of the internet. When the .com bubble was happening, my brother and I started a web design company. We didn't even know what web design really was, but we saw how people were doing it. And we built an awesome company. It was 7 employees. We would work from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. And then we played video games all night, and everyone slept under their tables, and we started all over again. It was like the most awesome, like, job I've ever had.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then 9/11 happened, and nobody had a marketing budget anymore.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized, wait a sec, I don't actually have any viable skills. You know, because we were playing. It was just the market needed something that we said we knew how to do. But at the end of the day, I didn't know how to do any of the core functions in a business to get it going. And that was a tough time. For 3 years after 9/11, I was working like 5 different jobs. You know, just got married too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so tough.
Yeah, it was tough. Like, I definitely know about like the whole market shift after 9/11 and how it changed our world. Just like earlier, we were just talking about before you came in. It was a conversation about January 6th and how it also changed like how we view each other and how we view like how businesses are even affected by it. About like how do I support a business? Like how do I support a business that was correlated with this? And it kind of puts us more in perspective about like these corporations. I believe. Yeah. Hey guys, starting this week, the charity of the week will be hosted by Fernando Camamino. Fernando, what's the charity of the week?
Hi everyone. Today, this week's charity is the Hope for Children Foundation, which is a charity that's focused on raising money to make a difference in the lives of children of Monmouth County. The charity has already raised over $3 million that have gone all towards those families in need. The charity has helped start the Family Pride program, which helps families with rental security, school, and counseling. They have also helped children's hospitals, public schools, and other foundations that support children with disabilities. You can be a part with helping our community too by going to hfcf.org and donating or volunteering.
And that's it, guys. So so let's like skip forward a little bit. How did you get this current position that you're at right now?
So it was actually some good fortune that came off of bad fortune. My mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and my brother, my family lives in Thailand. So my brother calls me and he says, Thailand doesn't have an infrastructure to take care of Alzheimer patients. So we need to really think about how we're going to take care of Mom. So I flew back to Thailand, and my brother said, come meet me at my office, and we'll have lunch together, and we'll discuss what we're going to do about Mom.
When was this?
This was, oh my gosh, 2015,
Okay.
somewhere around there. And so I'm sitting in front of his office, and then his boss, she's one of the preeminent real estate developers in Thailand. She walks by and she's like, who are you? And why are you sitting in my office? I'm sitting there. So I introduced myself, and she was gracious enough to ask me all these questions about my background and, who I am and what I do and whatnot. And I told her, I work in media, I work in New York City, this is what I do. And then she told me about her company. And then one of the interesting things that she said was, Bach, for my company, I take 2% of gross profits from my company and I donate it to an orphanage. And I said, why would you do that? And she said, because kids need to eat every day. If you're donating net profits, what happens on an off year? Do you not give the same amount to those kids? So I was like, oh, wow, I never thought about that, right? So jokingly, I said to her, I was like, you know what? I work in New York City. My portfolio of clients are all the big Fortune 100 companies, and I've never heard of one that does that. I want to come work for you. And she's like, Bach, with your background, you need to meet my husband. Now, her husband came out of the manufacturing side. He made ocean-themed products like picture frames with shells on it, or cards, with sand and shell for Hallmark and whatnot. So he's manufacturing all these things for Target and Walmart and whatnot. And he realized that no one remembered his brand, so he tried to create a mascot for his brand. And in the process of learning how to create a mascot, he learned about animation. And he's like, wait a second, so you're telling me I can tell a story about the ocean through animation, right? So he had this idea. And he's, to this day, this came out in 2007, his series came out in 2007, after he asked for money for 7 years, turned down by over 200 banks and private investors. And then he finally met a restaurateur who was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but I believe in you. He's like, I will give you the money to make the series. And to this day, he's the only animation producer to have had a show from Thailand, produced in Thailand, that has aired in over 180 different countries, translated in 35 different languages, and it also aired on NBC for 2 or 3 years. So I went to him the very next day, and he was operating out of this little house, and he's like, Bach, this is what I want to do. And he showed me a 7-second clip, and it was a wireframe of 2 characters back to back, and it just spun like this. It's black and white. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I was like, cool. But I didn't get it yet, right? And he's like, I'm going to create animation, but I'm also going to create a fund so that anyone who has a good story to tell doesn't have to go through what I went through. for 7 years. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me know how we can work together. So we chatted for another year. And, and he's like, we're gonna start this company, and it wasn't moving forward. So at that point, I had interviewed with a very major tech company that was looking for a new CMO, and a marketing agency that I used to work with said, please come in, we have to defend it and keep the business. So I went, and it was a very successful pitch, and the very next day I was going to go and sign the contract to help run the performance marketing side of this for this tech company. And my boss calls me up. He's like, Bach, I got the funding. Let's do this. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Because I was going to move my family to Thailand. So that meant half the salary that I would have made if I stayed in New York. Moving my whole family back to Thailand. We barely speak Thai. My family doesn't speak Thai. My Thai was terrible. After I accepted the role, I actually had to play a whole bunch of Thai daytime dramas and hone up on my language.
Learning it again.
Yeah, so that's how I got the job, by meeting someone that I didn't know and just being supportive of his dream, and then helping him develop the company as we went through, right? So at first we're running this company, but we were an investing company. And it quickly became clear to me that as the investor, especially in entertainment, it's the worst position to be in, because you're the first person to drop your money, and you're the last person to get any money back, right? Because all the stars get their money first, the production companies get their money first to make the projects, then the sales groups make their money, then the theaters make their money, and theaters take half of everything you get. Then your second window, which barely exists anymore these days, is from home entertainment. And then when all those people get it, then the investor gets it. So that's when my role really started developing. That's when I was like, you know what, this is a really terrible position for us to be in. We need to expand our capabilities, and we have to look at opportunities for us to generate revenue at every step of the revenue stream in entertainment. So from there, within the next 4 years, we spun out 2 talent management companies. We spun out 5 different production companies. We started distributing movies ourselves into theaters, so we became the sales agents domestically. We started making toys, luxury toys, not like toys that you find in a regular school, not a regular school, but like a regular retail store. We were making collectible toys like Transformers, Walking Dead. All those guys came to our company in China.
Oh, so branded toys?
It was OEM type toys, but we also made our own toys too, and that did really well until COVID came along.
Yeah. Oh, really? I would assume that people would want toys for themselves during COVID, so they would just give them kids.
Well, no, it wasn't on the demand side. It was the supply side. It was very difficult.
Because the factories couldn't be up. Yep.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. So that was really tough. And then from there, we transitioned into making casual games for mobile phones.
Okay.
And then started doing NFTs. So we have our own NFT arm, and we also have a metaverse arm, or I should call virtual world.
Yeah.
Everyone's definition of metaverse has kind of muddled the water a little bit. So we're creating an immersive environment that mixes augmented reality with what you would see. One of the hardest things for us was trying to find a technology that would support kind of like the vision of what Ready Player One had put in place. And fortunately, this Apple Vision Pro seems to have answered all of our prayers.
Okay.
You know, so in terms of its ability to fix
It is very
virtual.
The only problem I kind of have is just like the not it's like the technology, of course, is like very high. It's just in its marketplace, it's just really expensive in comparison.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's the path of all technology,
That it is.
right? When the iPod came out, I couldn't afford an iPod, you know, at that time. When the iPhone came out, it was many, many years after the iPhone came out before I was able to afford a smartphone. It's just that these companies, much like medicine, spend a ton of money on R&D to get the technology small enough to fit into one device. So there's a point in time when they have to make the money back, right? So that's when it's cost prohibitive for most people. And then once that becomes something that they can do, then the price like starts leveling out.
Yeah, I know regular AirPods now are $90. I remember they used to be like $150 originally when they first came out, but like now they're cheaper. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
So is that like the plan of like just waiting? Is that you're developing all the ideas now and all the technology now, so once it becomes more market friendly that everybody can get an item like an Apple Vision Pro, that you'll have the materials ready?
So yeah, so we're building the experiences now, the digital assets to do it, right? The Apple Vision Pro has a lot of capabilities that we were hoping would come out in a headset, right? So it's looking very promising. Now, the one difficult thing with any kind of headset that people have is that the weight, you know, causes a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
Right. So I think.
But I've seen that like apparently you're supposed to be walking around with them. That's their idea, is that you walk around with the Apple Vision Pro and like it's supposed to be like a second layer of reality.
Right. Right. Which is what we were really looking for, because before that it was all virtual reality, right? And virtual reality, those headsets like the Oculus Pro cover everything, super heavy. The average time that people could use one of these headsets is 7 minutes, right? And people get dizzy. They get vertigo or seasickness from trying to walk virtually with the headset. With the Vision Pro, it's augmented reality. So it overlays information into the real world, right?
So AR.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Right. So that's what we were hoping to do. Bring, you know, like a virtual assistant like Cortana from Halo, right? And you can see her. Like that's kind of the stuff that we're trying to develop.
Okay, that's great. That's great. We got to wrap up soon. My showrunner is like throwing me off, but like, thank you for coming on, and I'm really glad that you get to share your story with the community and everybody and all of our viewers. And I think it's important that someone like you keeps like your success going, keep it like strong. And also, like, I feel like you're a very humble man, but it's okay to like share your story and be more proud about it. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I'm glad that you came on the show to share it with all of us.
Well, I'm glad you invited me, because if you didn't, I'd just be talking to my dog.
Now, for our musical guest, the one, the only, Indigo Sky.
What do we even know? Who are we to say what we want in this world? Is it too late to stay? Where did the time go? Where did the time go? What do we know? Where do we? Nothing lasts forever. It's time to open our eyes. We can sleep forever in our mind. time go? What do we know? And where do we go? Nothing lasts forever. Time will in our eyes. We could sleep forever in our mind. Nothing lasts forever. It's time in our eyes. We could sleep forever in our mind. I tried to sleep, but was woken up by the pressure of time and the morning sun. Who are you to know what you really want? Push for nothing while I'm rushed for time. You're one of the sheep, so step into line. Who are you to know what you really want? Who are you to know what you really want? Who are you to know what you really want? Take it away.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Tez Talk Show. Like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also follow us on TikTok and Instagram. Ta-ta!